Okay, hello everybody. Today is June 11th, 12th, 13th, something like that. I think it's the June the 13th, okay? 2014. But anyway, I want to talk with everybody today about how to be at peace in troubled times. How do you do it? There's a lot of different theories and ways to go about this. Everybody's got their own clue, right? I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was wanting to get into what he was thinking in here, okay? Because we put on this shell on the outside. It's called our ego, okay? Some people say, you know, what we show the world is our ego, and then what we hide is in the shadows, is what we don't show the world. It's sort of like, you know, you put on this pretty face for everybody else, but then in your own little private world, you're really hurting, you're suffering, and you don't tell anybody about it. But yet, you need to know how to work with that part. You need to know how to come to peace with that part on the inside, that peace we call the inner critic, or the inner bully, or the id part, like the childlike part that you have on the inside of you. A lot of people that doesn't know about psychology, they don't understand when you talk about the inner critic and the inner bully, or the inner child. And really, the inner child is that part of you that wants to go have a good time all the time. It's the part that wants things now. It wants it right now, and it doesn't want to wait. If you have to wait on something, you say you're patient, you're still going to have that inner child that's going to be impatient. You know, if you're working all the time 24/7 and it's been a long time and you ain't never been on a vacation in forever, that inner child is the part that wants to go on that vacation, okay? I could go on and on about what that inner child is, but we got to have the inner child to have a good time in life. Without the inner child, you just be an old, grumpy person that never wanted to have any fun. So the inner child can be a powerful part in your life if you feed it the right compassion and love and peace. And we'll get into that in just a minute. Okay? And then you got the inner critic, the part that's always saying, well, you should have done this and you should have done that. And look how you look today. And what about that, you know, that part on your face there that doesn't look right? Or look at your eyes and look how bad they're going. You know, it's just an inner critic. We picked this up when we were children. And we call it an ego. And the ego has 3 different parts. The ego's really got a lot more parts than just 3, but I'm going to keep it at 3 right now with what Freud said was the id, the ego, and the superego. But when I say those words, a lot of people don't quite understand them, so I'm going to say it like this. It's the child, it's the parent, and it's kind of like what you're doing at your age, okay? So it's like the part in you from when you was a child, it's a part in you from now, and it's a part in you from what your parents always told you and what you tell your own kids. You know, you don't need to do that. You better do this. And if you don't listen to this, then this is what's going to happen. Well, that's the superego. It's the part of you that's just looking out for your betterment, trying to it's shoulding you to death is what it's doing. Should. It's saying you should have done this and you should have done that and you better do this and you better do that. Well, that keeps you tension. That builds tension on the inside. You can't have peace. Okay, and you got this other part. It's called the inner bully. And I would relate the inner bully sometimes to the superego, like the parent part, or the child part sometimes. So the inner bully can be either one. Now, you've heard me throw out quite a few names here, but every one of them is just the child part, the parent part, and the other part that's you just putting pressure on yourself, which is you in the now. And another thing, if you're thinking in the past, okay, to all the time, then you're always going to be, you know, sad. If you're always thinking in the future, then you're always going to be anxious, okay, or fearful, okay. So you got to be in the now too. When I'm talking about all this, you got to be in the now. And remember, this was how to have peace in troubled times. When I say troubled times, the troubled times are the times that you create in your own mind. The troubled times You know, it's not just when the bills get cut off. It's not just when you ain't got enough money to pay for the gas to get to work. It ain't just when, you know, the president says, you know, we're going to cut the food stamps out. It ain't just those. If you get to peace, if you have this inner peace on the inside of you, this inner calm on the inside of you, when anything like that happens, that run out of gas money, the light bill gets cut off, you'll still have that peace. You might get a little, you know, the waters might rumble a little, but you can enter into this peace that God says in the Bible, that Jesus said passes all understanding. Okay? Which I'm a Christian, I come from the Christian faith, but we have to understand that to have peace in troubled times, you have to be able to have peace in good times. And most of us can't have peace in good times. Most of us don't know how to have peace in good times. We act like we're having a good time, but we're not. We leave the party, oh man, we had a blast, we drank 15 beers that night, gosh, talked to all the people there, but when we get home and we wake up the next day, that hurt, that pain, that inner turmoil is still there. So how do you have peace in the midst of turmoil? How do you have peace the next day after you get home and nobody's there to put on this charade, this illusion of making you feel good? You're the one that's got to make you feel good. And how do you do that? You sit around and meditate on peaceful thoughts. You sit around and you give yourself self-compassion, a lot of love. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and tell yourself, I love you. I love you. Hey, I love me some me. I love you. And you have to do that over and over. But not only that, cultivate happiness by being one with nature. Go out in nature and be happy with hearing the birds chirp and coming to peace with that. But before we even go out into nature, you need to get your thoughts right. Okay? So what do we do to be in peace when we have the inner critic saying, you know, you should have done this and you should have done that? When you hear that voice, tell it to shut up. Tell it to be quiet. Ask it why. Because, you know, all of us have this inner voice. All of us, everybody has this inner voice that says you should have did this, you should have done that. And the thing is, you have to control that part. If you really want to be able to be at peace in the midst of turmoil, then you have to control the self-critic part. And when the self-critic part speaks up, or it might be in psychology, it's called the self-critic, or it's called the inner critic, and it's called the superego, and it's called other names. But anyway, the main point is when you hear that voice go off in your head saying, well, you should have done that, why didn't you do it this way, why didn't you do it that way, that's when you need to ask it why. I'm happy the way I am. Say that to it. Speak to it if you want to. Or just tell it to shut up. You ain't got to listen to it. Or reframe the meaning. And kind of show the inner critic, you know, like, I did it the best I could. Can we be okay with that? And you'll hear the voice, that inner critic, say, yeah, we can be okay with that. That's sort of like a little parts therapy. IFS, internal family systems. Anyway, all you got to do is when you hear that voice in your head, so many of us don't know when we hear that voice in our head saying, you should have done this and you should have done that. We don't know that you can make it stop. You can even imagine there's a big volume out in front of you, a big volume from like an old radio, and you just reach up and hear the voice and just turn it down. When you turn it down, it won't be there. But anyway, the main point on the inner critic, or the superego, or the parent part that's in your mind, is to stop shooting. Stop shooting on yourself, okay? I know it sounds funny, I know it sounds weird, but stop the shoulds, okay? Now, the other part is the inner critic, I mean the inner bully, okay? You got a part, the inner critic and the inner bully kind of go hand in hand, so I'm going to say you can use the same thing with that inner bully part too. That's the part where you always have fear. You know, what if I walk in this place here? Well, this is part of the part of it. What if I walk in this place here and what are they going to think about me? Well, what if they say this and what if they say that? It's sort of like the what ifs. What if this happens? And what if that happens? And what if this happens? Well, what if it happens? Okay? The thing is, when you hear that voice saying, what if this happens? Tell it to shut up. Again, tell it to shut up. You ain't got to listen to it. It's your own thoughts. You can control them. But you never knew you could. Well, now, today, I'm telling you, you can. And with the inner child, when it gets upset and frustrated because you didn't get that phone call on time, or somebody didn't do something the way you thought they should have, and so you get, tension and angry, you got to let stuff like that go. Okay, that's the inner child for a reason, so that you can be happy and playful and joyful. It's not the inner child so that you can still be a child when you're 30 or 40 or 50 years old or even 20 years old. That's the part where you can calm that part too by just being easy on yourself, going light on yourself. That's the part, what can you do at a later time, this inner child, ask it, what can you do at a later time to make it happy? And then this part will speak to you, and it's your mind, it's your own thoughts talking to yourself, and it'll say, well, we could go to the movies next week, and you'll be like, okay, are you okay with that? And the part will come back and say, yeah, I'm okay with that. And it's like this little child's jumping up and down. And then all of a sudden you'll feel good. See, you just gave the little child the candy, so be quiet and quit bugging you so that you can get out and enjoy your life. The whole idea is being at peace in the midst of turmoil. How do you be at peace in the midst of turmoil? How you do it is you be at peace with those parts in your body. The id, the superego, and the ego are the child, the parent, and who you are now. Who you paint yourself as being in front of the world. Because on the inside, again, you got those three different parts. And you need to be at peace with those parts. When you can become at peace with those three different parts and your creator, your higher power, Jesus Christ is mine. And when I can be at peace with him, and that's always, then I'm happy. Okay? But I have to be at peace with those parts on the inside of me too. And this is a psychological teaching, but at the same time, most people doesn't know about the id, the ego, the superego, or the child, the parent, parts, the inner bully, the inner critic. People don't know about those parts. You have to make peace with those parts, guys. Okay? You make peace with those parts. I done told you in this video how to do it. God bless you, and have a good day. And make peace with your inner parts so that you can be at peace in the midst of turmoil. Thank you.